Hello everyone, it's my great honor to make a presentation here. My name is Rong. The title of my paper is Backdoor Attack of Graph Neural Network based on Subgraph Trigger. Next, I will introduce the following 5 aspects: background, attack overview, GNN backdoor, experiments, and future work. In recent years, deep learning model has been widely used. However, these models need a lot of training data and computing costs. So users usually choose the models provided by the third-party platform. Making use of the insecurity of the third-party platform, the attacker modifies the dataset to train special models and uploads them to the third-party platform. These incredible models will be applied to face recognition, automatic driving, natural language processing, and other scenarios. If users use these malicious models inadvertently to obtain service, they will face the leakage of privacy information, property loss, and even threats to life safety. Backdoor attack is a new type of attack. The attacker adds some specific marks, namely triggers, to the dataset to activate the backdoor of the model. Once the model identifies the triggers, the samples will be misclassified as a target label of the attacker. For the face recognition system, the attacker uses a pair of red glasses as a trigger. If he wears red glasses, the system will recognize the person as a normal user. The input method we use is also a neural network model. The attacker can modify the word and make a sentence lose its original meaning. The attacker adds a yellow square on the traffic sign. The self-driving vehicle will recognize the stop sign as deceleration, causing unnecessary losses. Backdoor attack requires 3 elements: trigger, model, and target label. The backdoor attack on GNN model is inspired by the GNN backdoor attack. Taking image classification as an example, the attacker adds a pixel in the lower right corner of some samples and sets the target label to 0. Once the backdoor model identifies the trigger in the sample, it will classify the samples as 0. The same is true of GNN's backdoor attack. However, the data processed by GNN model is different from images. They are network graphs composed of nodes and edges. Therefore, for graph data, triggers are often designed as subgraphs of a specific structure. We apply backdoor attack to graph classification task. For a normal GNN model, it can learn nodes features and graph structures, and then divide the sample into different categories. A backdoor GNN can correctly classify clean samples. When a subgraph trigger is found in the graph structure, this sample will be misclassified as a target label present by the attacker. There are still some limitations in the existing work. The generated trigger is single. Most of the existing researchers design a specific subgraph structure as a trigger, and then insert it for all target samples uniformly. While the diversity of the triggers is not investigated thoroughly, the selection of attack nodes is random. The attack nodes are usually selected by randomly sampling from the graph structure. The importance of nodes in the entire graph and the influence of nodes on the attack success rate are not investigated in detail. The backdoor attack method cannot adapt to various kinds of GNN models. Existing researchers only choose the effectiveness of attack to some specific models of GNN for some particular tasks, making verification of multiple variant models of GNN. To address these problems, we start the research on backdoor attacks to GNN models and focus on 3 points. That is, the generation of trigger, the selection of attack nodes, and multiple GNN models validation. The first step, we need to generate triggers. Firstly, we make numerical statistics for each category of the dataset, including the number of graphs, average density of graphs, number of nodes, degree, etc. Then, we use or random graph generation algorithm to generate a trigger structure. The number of trigger nodes is 4, and the density is the average density of target label samples. Finally, according to the label distribution of each sample node, we get the trigger node label as the trigger node features and get the trigger structure and feature of the target label. The second step is to select the attack nodes. We calculate the degree centrally and colonies centrally of nodes, normalize the 2 indexes, and then sum them in proportion lambda. The degree centrally reflects the local structure features of nodes, and the colonies centrally reflect the global structure features of nodes. The results are sorted, and the top k nodes with the highest score are selected as the attack nodes. The number of attack nodes depends on the number of trigger nodes. The third step, we divide the trigger insertion into 2 phases, training and testing phase. The attacker's goal is not to affect the accuracy but ensure the attack is hidden in the training phase. We only select a small part of the training data to insert triggers, since the generated triggers are related to a specific class of graphs. Labels of samples with triggers are all modified to the target label in the training set. In the testing phase, the attacker hopes to ensure the effectiveness of the attack. In other words, the accuracy does not change immediately on the clean samples but drops significantly on the poisoned test set with inserted triggers. We insert triggers into all samples in the test set and evaluate the effects of the attack based on the result predicted by the model. In insertion process, the age between the attacked nodes and the normal nodes will not change, and the attacked nodes are replaced with the trigger nodes one by one, including the structure information between the nodes and the node features. To diversify triggers, we also fine-tune triggers during insertion. We retain the structure of basic triggers with a probability of 0.8. The inserted triggers have the same target label. We insert triggers into other categories. In the experiments, we use 3 evaluation indexes to verify the effectiveness of the proposed method: the accuracy of the model, the attack success rate, and the accuracy of clean dataset respectively. According to the above indicators, our goal is to only insert triggers into the training set without affecting the model's accuracy. After triggers are inserted into both the training set and the test set, the accuracy will drop significantly, ensure that the attack success rate is high, and the accuracy drop of the clean test set is as small as possible. And the density of trigger nodes accuracy drop and attack success rate. We find that the and the smaller the density, the less on the and the number of nodes is larger, and the density is small, which can get a higher attack success rate. To ensure the height and effectiveness of attack, we prefer to select the trigger pyramids with less nodes and density to the dataset. By comparing the attack success rate of the two generation methods of the node features, the sample method generates similar node features based on the distribution vector. In contrast, the reverse based on sample to get opposite node feature distribution to generate node features. We found that is more then the method of randomly selecting attack nodes with our proposed node structure method. The conclusion is that it is better to select attack nodes based on the importance of nodes than random selection, and the more important nodes are attacked, the higher the attack success rate is. Through the table below, we find that the fine-tuning of the trigger has an unnoticeable impact on the attack success rate of the DD dataset and the attack density dataset. We think it is because the trigger densities of these two datasets are small, and the number of nodes is less. In the case of a small trigger size, it does not have too many edges to satisfy our fine-tuning strategy, and the protest for dataset density is slightly larger, so the fine-tuning strategy has an impact. We compare the attack effectiveness of different models on 3 mile datasets. In these 3 models, GIN pays more attention to the structure information of the sample. Graph stats and GCN pay more attention to the node features. From the results, our trigger modifies the sample structure and node features. In different GIN models, our attack method has shown promising results. In our work, we study the backdoor attack of the GNN model based on subgraph triggers and use sample statistics to generate specific triggers. Last but not the least, there are still many issues worthy of researching in our work. The most important of which is to design an effective defense strategy to actively respond to different backdoor attacks and maintain the model's security and stability. In general, it can be divided into the following 2 aspects. Detection of backdoor attacks. Through the research of the attacks, we can find the attackers' similar destructive behaviors, such as the strategy of modifying the dataset. We can start from the anomaly detection of the dataset, detecting whether there is a backdoor trigger in the dataset, or analyzing the similarity of nodes and edges. It can detect abnormal nodes and edges to troubleshoot backdoor triggers. Defense against backdoor attacks. Attack and defense are like 2 parties in a game. Both parties need to constantly explore strategies to interfere with the opponent's operations. Our future work will explore the defense against modern backdoor attacks from 2 aspects: pre-training before attack and cleaning the backdoor after attack. That's all my presentation. Thanks for your attention.